The night she showed up at my door, I understood two things before she said a word. First, something had finally broken. Second, if I let her in, nothing in my life was staying simple after that. It was close to midnight. I had just gotten home from a long day at Hallberg Development, loosened my tie, poured a drink I barely touched, and was standing in the dark of my apartment looking down at the city. That was my life most nights. Good address, good view, good position in a company people in this state treated like a landmark. My father built it from nothing. My mother guarded the family name like it was a living thing. My older brother Marcus was the future of it, at least according to everybody who had ever met him for more than 10 seconds. Marcus had the smile, the voice, the ease. He walked into a room and people turned toward him without thinking. I walked into the same room and people usually noticed me once something went wrong and needed fixing. That had been true my whole life. It was true at board meetings, true at charity dinners, true at family events where Marcus worked a crowd like he'd been trained for it, which he had. I still had my place. I knew the company better than most people gave me credit for. My father trusted me when something got complicated. But trust and attention are not the same thing. In my family, they never were. Then the knock came. Not polite, not loud either. Just fast, uneven. Like whoever was outside had almost lost the nerve halfway through. I opened the door and there she was. Sophia. My brother's wife stood in the hallway soaked from the rain. Her hair stuck to her face. Mascara smudged. One heel in her hand like she'd given up trying to look put together before she got upstairs. She was shaking hard enough that, for a second, I thought she might actually fall. I didn't ask why she was there. I just stepped aside. She looked at me with this raw, exhausted expression I had never seen on her before and said, "Can I stay here tonight?" That voice nearly finished me. Sophia was never the loudest person in a room, but people noticed her anyway. She had that kind of calm presence that made everyone else seem like they were trying too hard. I had noticed it the first night I met her, years ago at one of our family foundation events. She'd been standing near the auction tables in a dark blue dress, listening to somebody explain something boring with more patience than they deserved. I had started walking toward her. Marcus got there first. That was all it took. That was always all it took. And now she was in front of me, destroyed in a way that made every polished family photo feel fake. I took her coat, set her heel by the door and walked her inside. "Sit down," I said. "I'll get you water." She sat on the couch like she didn't know where her body ended. I handed her a glass. She held it in both hands but didn't drink. Her eyes moved around my apartment, not really seeing any of it. "What happened?" I asked. For a second she didn't answer. Then she laughed once, and it was one of the saddest sounds I'd ever heard. "He isn't in Chicago," she said. I stayed quiet. "He said he had meetings until Friday." Her fingers tightened around the glass. "I called the hotel because he stopped answering me. I told the front desk I needed to leave a message. He never checked in." I felt my jaw lock. She went on in pieces after that. Not dramatic, not wild. That almost made it worse. Fake trips, missed calls, changed passwords, a restaurant charge in town on a night he claimed he'd already landed somewhere else. One lie leading to another until she finally stopped doubting herself long enough to see the whole shape of it. "There's someone else," she said, staring at the floor. "I don't even think that's the worst part. The worst part is how long he let me stand beside him and smile while he knew." I sat across from her, elbows on my knees, hands locked together so I wouldn't reach for her too soon. "I kept thinking maybe I was imagining it," she said. "Maybe I was tired. Maybe marriage just gets cold for a while. Maybe I was asking for too much." She looked up at me then, and her eyes were shining. "Do you know what's humiliating? Realizing you were the only person in the room who didn't know you were being made into a fool." I wanted to go find Marcus right then, drag him out of wherever he was. But anger was easy. She wasn't there for anger. She was there because she had run out of places to fall. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. "I just knew I couldn't stay in that house tonight." Then, after a long silence, she said the one thing I had spent years being afraid to hear. "I came here because you're the only one in that family who ever really sees me." I looked away first. I had to, because the truth was, I had seen her from the beginning. Every interruption Marcus cut across her with. Every dinner where she smiled through being dismissed. Every event where she stood alone for 10 minutes while he entertained a donor or a camera or his own reflection in a window. She carried herself with grace because that was the role. But I had seen the cost of it. She wiped under one eye with the heel of her hand, then gave me this broken, reckless look. I don't want to think tonight. I don't want to be the wife who gets lied to. I don't want to be invisible. Her voice dropped. I just want one night where I feel chosen. The room went completely still. For years, I had imagined what it would feel like to hear anything even close to that from her. In every version, I thought I'd know exactly what to do. I didn't. I got up slowly, crossed to the couch, and knelt in front of her. Sophia, I said, and my voice sounded rougher than I meant it to. Listen to me carefully. She was breathing hard now, waiting. I have wanted you for longer than I should have, I said. Long enough that I stopped pretending to myself about it a long time ago. She closed her eyes. And because that's true, I am not going to do this with you tonight. Her face changed. Not hurt exactly. More like disbelief. I kept going before she could speak. Not like this. Not when you're shattered. Not while you still belong to a marriage, even a broken one. I won't be another man who takes something from you because you're hurting. For a second, I thought she might pull away. Instead, she started crying for real. Not quietly. Not gracefully. The kind that takes over your whole body when you've been holding too much for too long. I moved beside her and let her fold into me. I held her while she broke apart on my couch, my hand at the back of her head, my shirt damp from rain and tears, and every part of me fighting itself just to keep that line where it belonged. Eventually, she wore herself out. I found her a blanket. She curled up on the couch, facing the window, one hand tucked under her cheek like she was trying to make herself smaller. Before she fell asleep, she said my name once, barely above a whisper. I stayed awake all night, knowing my life was about to change. If you're enjoying the story, please like and subscribe. I answered right away. Thank you, she said. I didn't sleep at all after that. I sat in the chair across from her until morning started turning the windows gray, knowing that for one night I had done the hardest thing I'd ever wanted to do. And knowing the moment Marcus found out where she'd been, the cost of it was coming. I made coffee before she woke up, mostly because I needed something to do with my hands. The apartment felt different in daylight. Smaller somehow. More honest. Sophia was still asleep on the couch, the blanket pulled up to her shoulder, her face turned toward the back cushions like she could hide from morning if she stayed still long enough. For a few seconds I just stood there with a mug in my hand and looked at her, and it hit me how dangerous the whole thing was now. Not because of what had happened, because of what hadn't. If I had crossed the line, at least I would have understood the damage. It would have been ugly but simple. Instead, I'd done the right thing, and I already knew that wasn't going to protect me from anything. She stirred a little after 7, sat up slowly, blinked like she had no idea where she was, then remembered all at once. I saw it happen on her face. The shame, the exhaustion, the wish that maybe the whole night had been some horrible dream. It's okay, I said before she could apologize. She looked at me, hair messy, makeup gone, and somehow more like herself than I'd seen in years. I'm sorry. You needed somewhere to go. That's not the part one mean. I set a cup down on the table in front of her. I know. She wrapped both hands around it, though I don't think she took a sip. I barely remember half of what I said. I remember enough. She winced at that and looked down. That makes one of us. I sat in the chair across from her, the same place I'd been all night. You don't need to be embarrassed with me. A long silence sat between us. Not empty, just heavy. Then she said, "Did you mean it?" I knew exactly what she meant. Could have dodged it. Probably should have. But too much had already been dragged into the light to start lying now. Yes, I said. I meant every word. She looked at me for a long time after that. No smile. No panic either. Just this tired, searching look, like she was trying to understand how long she had missed what was right in front of her. I think part of me always knew, she said quietly. I just never let myself look at it. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. That was probably for the best. For who? I almost laughed at that, but there was nothing funny in the room. For everybody until now. She leaned back and closed her eyes for a second. I can't go on pretending after this. Then don't. Her eyes opened. You say that like it's simple. It isn't simple, I said. But staying and acting like nothing's broken isn't simple either. It just takes longer. She nodded once. Slow. Like she hated that I was right. He'll lie, she said. I know. He'll deny everything. I know. And if he thinks I told you, he'll turn it around. He'll make this look like something else. That one landed hard, mostly because she was saying out loud exactly what I'd already been thinking since about 3 a.m. Marcus had a gift. Not for truth. For control. He could walk into a bad situation and come out looking offended that anybody had doubted him in the first place. Sophia watched my face and saw she'd hit the mark. You know he will. Yeah, I said. I do. She stood then, setting the cup down untouched. Her heels were still by the door. Her coat was hanging where I'd left it. It all looked too normal for a morning like that. I have to go back, she said. I stood too. Do you want me to come with you? She hesitated, and that hesitation told me more than her answer did. She wanted me there, but she also knew what my presence would do. In my family, facts mattered less than timing. Optics mattered more than either. I don't know, she admitted. I respected her more for that than I would have respected certainty. Then don't decide yet. She picked up her bag. If this gets ugly, it's already ugly. For the first time that morning, her mouth almost moved like a smile. Almost. You always do that. Do what? Say the part nobody else wants to say. I walked her to the door. She stopped before I opened it. Will you stand beside me? She asked. There it was. The question under all the others. I wish I could say I answered right away. I didn't. Because standing beside her in private was one thing. Standing beside her against Marcus, against my mother, against the whole machine of my family once it started moving, that was different. Not harder morally, just costlier. But I'd already made my choice the second I let her in. Yes, I said. She nodded and I opened the door. The apartment felt dead the second she left. I lasted maybe 20 minutes before my phone rang. Marcus. I stared at his name on the screen until it almost stopped. Then answered. Where is she? He asked. No greeting. No confusion. No act yet. Just flat anger. I'm not doing this over the phone, I said. A short laugh came through the line. Interesting. So she was with you. There it was. He didn't know for sure. He was fishing and I'd given him enough. I said nothing. He took my silence and built a story out of it in real time. That was Marcus. Fast when cornered. You really did it, he said. My own brother. Careful, I said, and my voice came out lower than I expected. You don't get to talk to me like you're the one who was betrayed. That shut him up for exactly 1 second. Then he recovered, smoother now, colder. She came to you in the middle of the night, and you expect anyone to believe nothing happened? I looked out the window and said, believe whatever lets you sleep. Oh, I'm not the one who should be worried about that. He hung up first. I knew what he was going to do before he did it. I still wasn't fast enough. My mother called next. She sounded shaken, but not in the way a mother sounds when she thinks both her sons are hurt. In the way she sounded whenever something threatened the family name. Tell me this isn't true, she said. I didn't even ask what version she'd heard. Marcus called you already. Did Sophia spend the night at your apartment? Yes. The silence on the line turned sharp. Then my father called, and somehow that was worse. He didn't accuse. He didn't shout. He just told me to come to the estate that evening because the family needed to settle this in person. That was his language for disaster. Not pain. Not grief. Order. By noon I had 3 missed calls from Marcus, 2 from my mother, 1 message from a family attorney I hadn't spoken to in months, and exactly nothing from Sophia. That part got to me. Not because I thought she'd changed her mind. Because I knew what kind of house she had walked back into. At 6:40, I parked outside the estate I grew up in and sat behind the wheel for a full minute, looking at the windows lit up against the dark. From the outside it still looked like the kind of place people admired. Solid. Impressive. Untouched. Inside, I knew Marcus would already be shaping the room. And for the first time in my life, doing the right thing had put me exactly where my family had always been most comfortable placing me. As the problem. By the time I walked into the estate, Marcus had already done what he always did best. He had gotten there first. You could feel it in the room. My mother was standing near the fireplace with one hand pressed to her waist like she was holding herself together by force. My father was at the far end of the sitting room, one arm over the back of a chair, quiet in that way that usually meant he was angrier than anyone else. Marcus stood near the bar, jacket off, sleeves rolled, looking tired in a way that had probably taken practice. He looked like a man who'd been wronged. That was the performance. And for 1 second, just one, I saw the version of this that might have worked if Sophia never showed up. My mother turned the second I came in. "Tell me right now that your brother is lying." Marcus let out a sharp breath through his nose, like even hearing that had offended him. I looked at my father first. "Is she here?" "She's on her way," he said. Marcus cut in. "Unbelievable. You still want her in here to help explain this?" I looked at him. "I want her here because this concerns her more than it concerns your pride." That hit him, but not enough to crack him. He gave me a cold smile instead. "My pride?" My mother stepped forward before I could answer. "Stop talking around it. She spent the night with you." Yes. That word landed like glass. My mother actually flinched. Marcus looked down like he hated having the truth confirmed, but I knew him too well. He liked having clean pieces to work with. A full denial would have made things messy. A simple yes gave him shape. My father's voice stayed level. "And what exactly are we supposed to understand from that?" Before I could speak, Marcus stepped away from the bar. "You don't have to understand much. She disappears in the middle of the night, goes to his place, stays there until morning, and now he's standing here like he deserves a medal for honesty." "I didn't ask for one," I said. "No," he said. "You just decided to make a move on my wife the second you thought you had an opening. That would have started a fight when we were younger. Maybe that was what he wanted. Something ugly enough to prove his point. Something loud enough to keep the conversation away from himself. But I wasn't 16 anymore. I'm not going to do this with you while you pretend you have clean hands," I said. His face changed a little then. Not much. Most people wouldn't have caught it. I did. My mother looked between us. "What is that supposed to mean?" Marcus answered for me. "It means he needs an excuse." I took one step toward him. "It means you should pray she gets here before I decide I'm done protecting you." My father straightened at that. "Enough." The room locked down again. Then the doors at the far end opened, and Sophia walked in. Everything changed. She wasn't dressed for comfort. She was dressed for war. Cream blouse, dark trousers, hair pulled back, no softness anywhere. The last time I'd seen her, she had been shaking on my couch, mascara streaked, voice breaking apart. The woman who walked into that room looked like she'd spent the day turning pain into something sharp enough to use. My mother said her name like a plea. "Sophia." Sophia didn't even look at her first. She looked at Marcus. "You started without me." Marcus gave her this careful, wounded look that would have convinced half the city at a charity dinner. "I started because you vanished and spent the night with my brother." She nodded once. "I did." My mother closed her eyes like that answer alone was too much. Marcus spread his hands a little. "So there it is." "No," Sophia said. "That's not it. That's the part you thought you could use." I swear the whole room went still enough to hear the clock. She turned to my parents then. "Yes, I went to his apartment. I went there because I had just found out my husband wasn't in Chicago. He wasn't in any meeting. He wasn't on any work trip. He was lying to me the way he has been lying to me for months." Marcus stepped forward fast. "Sophia." She didn't even raise her voice. "Don't." He actually stopped. She looked back at my mother. "You want the truth? Here it is. The late meetings. The flights that never matched the receipts. The hotel bookings that disappeared. The calls he took outside. The way he stopped touching me and then acted annoyed that I noticed. The way he let me keep showing up beside him in public, smiling for photos, greeting your friends, hosting dinners, sitting at your table, while he was giving pieces of his life to someone else. My mother sat down hard in the nearest chair. My father looked at Marcus. Not confused anymore, just cold. Marcus recovered the way he always did. You're upset, and I understand that. But this is not the way to handle it. Not with him. Not like this. Sophia laughed once, but there was no humor in it. You still think this is about appearance. It is about appearance, my mother said automatically, then stopped like she heard herself too late. Sophia turned to her. Exactly. Nobody spoke. Then she said the words that changed everything. I asked your younger son for something I should never have asked for. My chest tightened. Marcus went very still. Sophia's voice stayed steady. I went to him wrecked, humiliated, angry, and not thinking clearly. I wanted one night where I didn't feel discarded. One night where I could forget what my husband had done to me. My mother pressed a hand to her mouth. My father's eyes moved to me. Sophia didn't look at me yet. And he refused. Marcus blinked. What? She turned to him at last. He refused me. The silence after that was brutal. She kept going. He let me cry. He gave me a place to stay. He told me the truth about how he felt, and then he drew a line you never would have drawn in his place. He would not touch me while I was broken and still married to you. I chose integrity over my own desires. Was I right to draw that line, or should I have followed my heart? Tell me in the comments. My mother looked at me then, really looked at me, and something in her face started to crack. Marcus shook his head. That's convenient. Sophia took one step toward him. No. Convenient would have been you coming home when you said you would. Convenient would have been not finding messages you forgot to erase. Convenient would have been not learning that your trips had a pattern, and a name attached to them and months behind them. There it was. Not rumor. Not suspicion. Detail. My father's voice came out lower than I'd heard in years. Is that true? Marcus looked at him, then at my mother, then at me. Still calculating. Still searching for the least costly lie. Things were complicated, he said. That was the closest he got to an answer. My mother made this small, broken sound in the back of her throat. Marcus. He moved toward her. Mom, listen to me. No, Sophia said. Everybody turned back to her. She slipped off her wedding ring. No dramatic pause. No shaking hands. Just one clean motion. She looked at the band for half a second, then set it on the table in front of Marcus. I have spent too long protecting your image, she said. His image. This family's image. I'm done doing it. Marcus stared at the ring like it was something offensive. Sophia's eyes were bright, but she didn't lose control. You don't get to call me disloyal because I went to the only person in this family who treated me like I mattered. And you do not get to drag him down to cover what you did. Marcus looked at me then, and whatever polish he usually carried was gone. You think you've won something? No, I said. I think you finally ran out of room. He lunged toward me. It happened fast, but my father moved faster. Enough, he thundered, and the whole room stopped around him. I had seen boardrooms go silent under that voice. I had never heard it turned on Marcus like that. My father pointed toward the door with a hand that didn't shake. Not another word until you remember how to tell the truth. Marcus stared at him like he genuinely could not process what was happening. That might have been the first real shock of his life. Not the affair coming out. Not the marriage ending. Our father choosing a side in public. My mother was crying now, quietly, one hand over her eyes. Not just for the marriage. For the years behind it. The excuses. The overlooking. The way Marcus had always been cushioned from the full weight of himself. Sophia stepped back from all of us like the room had finally become too small to stand in. I moved on instinct. Sophia. My father stopped me without even looking at me. Let her go on her own. He was right. I hated that he was right, but this part didn't belong to me. Sophia looked at me then, finally, and there was a whole conversation in that one glance. Gratitude, pain, something softer under both. But she gave me the smallest shake of her head, and I understood. Not yet. Then she turned and walked out of the room without another word. The door closed behind her. Marcus stood on one side of the table, pale and furious. The ring sat between us. My mother was crying. My father looked older than he had that morning. And I was standing in the middle of the ruin Marcus had built, cleared of blame and somehow still empty-handed. I had my name back. The family didn't have itself anymore. The house stayed loud for weeks after that, even when nobody raised their voice. That was the strange part. The real damage in my family never came from shouting. It came from silence, from doors closing, from calls that stopped getting returned, from people suddenly acting careful around subjects they used to own. Marcus moved out of the main estate before the month was over. My mother kept trying to hold on to pieces of normal life that were already gone. My father stopped pretending the company could move forward the way it always had. Nobody said it directly, but the future had shifted. Sophia was gone from all of it. Not vanished, just gone in the right way. She left the house, got her own place, and stopped showing up where people expected her to be. No more family dinners. No more smiling beside a name that had cost her too much. The legal part moved forward quietly. The social part did not. People talked. They always do. But for the first time since I'd known her, Sophia wasn't living to make their version of things easier. I didn't chase her. That was the hardest part after everything that had happened. Not because I doubted what I felt. Because I didn't. I knew exactly what I wanted. I had known for years. But if I reached for her too fast now, then that night at my apartment meant less. My restraint only mattered if it stayed real after the crisis was over. So I gave her room. A month passed before she called me. I was leaving the office when her name came up on my screen. I just stood there in the parking garage staring at it for a second before I answered. "Hi," she said. That one word did more to me than it should have. "Hi." There was a small pause. Not awkward. Careful. "I wasn't sure if I should call," she said. "I'm glad you did." Another pause, then a quiet breath. "Would you meet me somewhere?" We started with coffee. Not dinner. Not drinks late at night. Coffee in the middle of the afternoon at a place across town where nobody from the family usually went. She was already there when I walked in, sitting by the window in a plain sweater. No guarded smile, no polished version of herself. Just Sophia. She looked lighter, not fully healed, not untouched, but lighter, like some invisible weight had finally been taken off her shoulders, even if the marks were still there. We talked for almost 2 hours and barely touched the scandal. She told me she'd started seeing someone to help her sort through the last few years. She was sleeping better. Badly some nights, but better. She'd gone back to doing small things she used to like before every part of her life became performance. Reading in the afternoon. Walking without checking her phone every 3 minutes. Cooking for herself. Choosing quiet on purpose. I told her I was proud of her. She looked down when I said it. Nobody in that family ever said things like that unless there was a reason attached. There doesn't have to be a reason. She looked back up at me then, and that look stayed with me for days. After that, we built whatever we were becoming slowly. Calls that lasted longer than either of us planned. Short messages in the middle of the day. A walk after work. Lunch that turned into sitting in my car talking for another 40 minutes because neither of us wanted to be the first one to leave. It was clean this time. No hiding in the middle of damage. No stealing moments from a life that still belonged to somebody else. Just two people finally standing in the truth and learning how to be there without ruining it. The first time she came back to my apartment after that night, she stopped just inside the door and looked around like she was seeing a ghost. I knew exactly what she was remembering. "I almost didn't come up," she said. "I know. I sat in the car for 10 minutes. That long." She gave me a small smile. "Longer." I took her coat and hung it up in the same place as before. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she said, "You changed the meaning of this place for me." I didn't answer right away. "You changed it for me too." We went out to the balcony with 2 glasses of water and the city below us. It was late, warm, quiet. Nothing dramatic. That was what made it feel real. She leaned against the railing and looked out for a while before speaking. "That night I came here asking for one night," she said. "I wasn't even thinking clearly. I just wanted something to stop hurting." I turned toward her. "I know." She looked at me then, fully, with none of the old confusion left in her face. You gave me something better than what I asked for. My chest tightened. What's that? She stepped closer. The chance to come back when I was actually free. I don't think I breathed for a second. Sophia. No, she said softly. Let me say it right this time. So I did. I know what you did for me that night, she said. And I know what it cost you after. You waited when you didn't have to. You protected me when taking the easier road would have given you what you wanted faster. And now I'm here because I'm not broken, and I'm not trapped, and I'm not choosing out of pain. She moved one step closer. I'm choosing you. That was it. No speech bigger than that. No audience. No family name hanging over the moment. Just her, standing in front of me, clear and steady, giving me the one thing I had never wanted unless it was real. I touched her face, and she leaned into my hand like she'd been holding that back too. Then she came the rest of the way to me, and I met her there. Years of silence ended in that one moment. When we finally pulled apart, she smiled against my shoulder and said, almost like she was laughing at the memory, "So this is better than one night." "Yeah," I said, holding her closer. "A lot better." And standing there with her in the same place where I had once stayed awake making sure I didn't take the wrong chance, I understood something simple. In my family, everybody had spent years grabbing, spinning, protecting, forcing. The only thing I ever did right was wait. And in the end, that was the reason she was finally mine.